Hey, what's up, you guys? Okay, so in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the ego and as well its role in magic, sorcery, and just overall psychology. So let's get into the video. You guys, my name's O'Shea. As well, you can call me Atanu, for this is my magical name. As well, you can call me Cool Cat, just a fun nickname. So, what is the ego? In a sense, if we were to define the etymology of the word ego, it is the self that which feels, acts, or thinks. So, truly, the ego is what we perceive ourselves to be. But the thing is, at the same time, although the ego, whenever we hear ego, oh, you have a big ego, things of this nature, right? We're actually not looking at truly what the ego is, um, based as an aspect of our persona and our psyche. Everyone just says, "Oh, you have a big ego," but most people don't know what the word ego means. And when they keep using it and reiterating it in this way, "Oh, big ego," usually they're not using it properly or correctly. So this is actually why I want to clarify to you guys and help you to understand what the ego is exactly. So the ego, there's three parts that make up the ego: the id, the ego, and then the superego. Right? The id is the emotional center of your mind. Right? So when you react to something, the reaction is actually it is, in a sense, that was random. It is your id being triggered by something in some way. So now, if we look at our superego and then the ego, we can actually associate this with many different, aspects or many different things. So if, say, someone's talking to me about trauma, and maybe I have repressed trauma in that way, that when they actually start to talk about it, I'm getting tense. I'm getting reaction like, "Oh, you said this, you said," right? That's in a sense what the ego is. It's the reactionary mechanism in which we have and hold, or that we have, and that we, in a sense, you could say our body or this aspect of our mind uses to keep us to keep us protected. That's what the ego is disguised as, a protection tool. Now, a lot of people perceive the ego as a negative thing, right? Because most people's ego is programmed in a negative manner, in a negative way. And especially if we look at societal programming, right? When you were a child, say ages like 7, right? It's at age 7 that's actually when we start to form the ego, right? And all these things that we were, all these societal conditions and structures that we were brought up to understand and know, this is when it's solidified within ourselves. It's from ages 1 to 7 that a child is most programmable, right? A child is easily programmed. And then it's from age 7 that they're taking that programming throughout their whole life. So most of us, me included, we were programmed by our parental figures, right? Our parents. We're programmed by society. We're programmed by teachers, by schools, by you name it. Endless amount of indoctrination. And it's in this indoctrination, it's in this programming that we took on these aspects of the illusion, and we took them on as aspects of our own persona, right? So if I was born poor, or thinking, or if I was born thinking I was poor, or I had a poverty mindset, my parents were poor, right? Then I'm gonna grow up thinking I'm poor. I might not say all the time, "Oh, I'm poor, I'm broke," but the thing is, it's gonna reflect and it's gonna show in my external environment, right? Because I might not be broke, I might not be poor, but I'm going to start living out that persona, living out that narrative of, "Oh, I'm broke and I'm poor because my parents were broke and poor." So I only have that to really look at when I think about it. And it's the same with, it's the same with everybody. Same with like a lot of people in this same way. And, modern day has really changed all of that, because now in the modern day, we can go on YouTube, we can learn how to be more prosperous, how to be more abundant, how to run a business. But look back before all this. If I didn't have parents that ran a business, I didn't know how to run a business, right? If I didn't have a parent that loved themselves, I didn't love myself, right? It's hard to learn things that are completely outside of your jurisdiction, or in a sense outside of your perception, right? And in the same way, our mind actually has a system called I believe the reticular activation system is the part of our mind in which we start to see things that have already came into view before. And I remember actually in the same way, this part of my brain being activated or triggered when while like a long time ago, my dad bought a new car, right? And as he bought a new car, it was a Nissan Cube. I started to actually see that that same car everywhere I went. And that's in a sense because I brought it first, or he brought it into my perception, into my awareness, where it's like, oh, now I know, okay, new car, right? And then I looked out into the field of my awareness, and then everywhere I went, I started to see a new car. Now, this is an aspect of our minds. This is an aspect of our psychology, right? So the moment that we actually start to learn new things, opening or expanding our mind, right? Dissolving our ego and expanding our mind, these are now the things that we can actually... It's in this same way that once we start to see something new, our mind doesn't go back to the same way it was, because it's learned something. It's learned something new that once you were broke and poor, you actually start to realize and understand how to make money, how to run a business, how to be more educated or wise, whatever it might be. And then as you start to learn these things, or as these things start to come into your awareness, you now stop perceiving that I am broke. I'm impoverished, right? And you start to actually realize that, and this also ties into growth mindset and understanding your reality in this way, right? Through the growth mindset. The growth mindset is you are able to achieve whatever you wish. You are able to achieve whatever you set out to do, right? If I don't know how to play baseball, then I'm going to learn how to play baseball, and then from learning, I then will get better at it. But someone who doesn't have a growth mindset will then be, I want to learn this, I want to get better, but they don't try to get better, right? And that's also a part of their ego, right? Because if you have a growth mindset, your ego is, I'm growing, I can grow, I know how to do this, I can always do this, and I can better myself at this and continue to move forward. I can learn this, right? It's like, I might not know it, but I know I can learn this, I know I can understand this. And then from you just having the want to understand, you're now able to move forward. Whereas if someone has lack, doubt, right, poverty, they might more be like, I don't know I can't do this. It's like, no, it's like I can't hit the ball. Every time I try, it just doesn't work, right? And that's the ego with some people. That's some people's minds, right? You can either have a productive ego, right? A growth mindset, a productive ego that isn't really deterring you from yourself, but more pushing you, trying to help you to find who you are. That would be a growth mindset. But if you have an ego that is more taking away from who you are, it's more programmed with doubts, limitations, disbelief, then it's actually going to now have to be that you have to program your ego or program your mind through unprogramming it, right? Dissolving the limitations of what you perceived yourself to be. And you're going to have to do this by actually starting to gain confidence within yourself. The more confident you become, the more your ego believes, I can do this, I know this, I got this, right? So it's really just about showing your ego, or at the end of the day, it's really just about showing your ego who you are, programming it with what you desire, with your intentions, with your thoughts, with your will, right? And the more that you can program your mind or program your ego, this is what will allow you to create your own role, to create your own narrative, because up until this point you've been programmed to live this narrative of who you think you are, who you perceive yourself to be, who you were programmed to be. You were programmed to be this character. You were programmed to be this being in which you perceive or that you think that you are, right? And the more that you live life, I'm sure that you guys have realized, you start to uncover more and more of yourself, and you're like, wow, I never was this persona. I was merely playing out a persona that someone wanted me to be, right? I was merely playing out a persona of what I thought how I thought I should act, how I thought I should be, based off society's standards, or based off my parents' standards, or based off, whatever it might be. For myself, it wasn't really my parents' standards. I didn't care about going to college or things of that nature, but I can definitely look back and I can see, working certain jobs like a 9 to 5, that definitely programmed me to, you gotta be here at this time, you gotta listen to your boss, you gotta obey all these things, right? To the point that it turns us into a slave, it turns us into a drone. And that's all society wants from us, is for us to be its slave, for us to be its drone, right? Because if you're not being a drone, then you're being a free, independent thinker. You're being yourself. If you're not a drone, you are yourself, right? Which that also ties into the archetypes of, drone into the alchemist, or drone into the artist, into the alchemist, into the magician, right? So, at some point we were all a drone. Maybe you're still a drone. If you were led to this video, most likely not. And then we had to wake up. We had to wake up to the artist, to the alchemist, right? And the artist creating, the alchemist transmuting, the magician merely being, enacting, doing, right? And I'll actually make a video on those archetypes and how we evolve through them, becoming our greatest version. That's another video though. So once we understand the role of the ego, right, that it's just a persona, it's what we perceive ourselves to be. Before you know what the ego is, you're locked into it. You don't really know why you're doing these things. You might do things and be like, wow, why did I do that? Like, why did I say that? Why? And it's your ego is what is orchestrating or creating that. Sometimes you might have said the wrong thing or something you didn't want to say because of, your own feeling, your own emotion towards something. Someone might say, hey, you look ugly, and then you just react, why am I? You just react, you respond, right? And if that's in your persona, to do so, right? Because sometimes when people hit our ego or hit our id, the emotional center of our minds or of our ego that makes us react, it can cause us to react. And when you keep reacting in the same nature, this creates a pattern where now your ego is based off that pattern or that persona. So if someone says you're ugly and you respond, why are you responding? You must also truly think that you are ugly. You must think that what they said is more likely to be real than how you actually truly feel or think about yourself. And that's why you didn't just say, fuck your opinion, I don't care. Instead you react, and it's like, well, why am I? And this is the thing within society, is that we have this mind that has already been programmed with so many primal and tribal things, right? To the point that, we even have I remember watching Billy Carson, right? And he talked about us having a worship gene embedded within us. So if we have a worship gene, this means that naturally we're going to want to be a part of society. We're going to want to be liked, right? This is an aspect of the ego, right? The moment, say, pretty girl comes your way, says, hey, you're cute, you react. The reaction is not the same as before, but it's still like, oh, hey, like, you're pretty cute too. And right, and then it's in that reaction that we actually start to see and understand that, yeah, like everybody just wants to be liked, everyone wants to be accepted. And this was even a tribal fact back in the yeah. This was a fact back in tribal days, tribal times, right? Because if you weren't liked by your tribe, then in a sense that meant that you were outed, that no one paid attention to you, no one cared about you. So it was more of a survival tactic to be liked by the tribe. Where now, to the point that modern society has taken advantage of this, with TikTok and TikTok filling your brain, and Instagrams being created by tech billionaires and psychologists to literally orchestrate this app to feed off of that exact need and that exact want of yourself, to the point that that's why people constantly feed social media or get fed off of by social media, the want for attention, the want to be liked, right? And that's a part of the ego, because when you want to be liked, you're going to act a certain way, you're going to act outside of yourself to be liked, not realizing that that's not you. Maybe you were friends with people for 10 years or 20 years, and you all acted the same, you all did the same thing. After all that time, what are you? The same. You're not yourself. You're the same as everybody else because you chose to be the same. You chose to be this way. You chose to act this way, be this person, this persona. Oh, haha, I'm a stoner. I am an alcoholic. I love drinking. I am an alcoholic, right? We attach ourselves to all these things. The ego attaches itself to the things in which we like to do, or who we think we are. Right? Oh, I'm a gym bro. I'm a gym rat, right? And then the thing is, when you lock yourself into that, well, why can't you be a psychologist? Why can't you be a scientist? Why can't you be an art major or a painter and also be a gym rat? Right? This is the fluidness of the ego, of the mind, of our ability to, contrive and truly be whatever it is that we want to be, or whoever we want to be, and represent that. And on top of that, so you can truly be whatever you want at the end of the day if you program yourself to be that, if you program your mind to do that. And we know that because that's college, that's school. Everybody programs themselves to be this way, to act this way, or to be a certain way, to act a certain way, right? Oh, I'm a psychologist. Now I program myself with learning mind. I read books on psychology, on the mind. I am now a psychologist. I meet with patients, and I help them with and you're programming yourself to be that. That's why you go to school. Were you that originally? No. It's like your mind doesn't know what the word psychology means. Psychology. And if it did, or if you do want to know what psychology actually means, it means the study of soul, right? Psychology, soul study. And a lot of times, college doesn't teach that. It doesn't teach. But so, okay, on top of that as well, you want to be a scientist, or you want to be a nurse. The way in which you will be a nurse is you go to school to be a nurse. You learn all those things, all the nursing studies, you take all the tests, and then bam, at the end, you have your credential, you're now a nurse. So if I want to be a pro skater, I go to the skate park every day, I skate, I make videos. If I want to be a model or an actor, I go out and I take pictures of myself, and I do the social media. I do the marketing aspects of all that, right? So really, we can be whatever we choose or whatever we want to be at the end of the day. It's merely our ego that is limiting our perception of what we perceive ourselves to be. If you just think, I am John from Delaware, and my dad was a salesman, so I am a salesman, and that's just the way I live my life, and I went about that, then that's what you want to be. But at the end of the day, you can be whatever you choose or perceive yourself to be, and it's truly just through reprogramming the mind. Most importantly, or the exact aspect of the mind in which you program, is the ego. And then you would, in a sense, dissolve the ego, right? So all of this was me teaching you about the conditionings of our society that is placed on us to make the ego act a certain way. So as you understand this, you actually start to understand that what this would do, what this does to most people, and even started to happen to me as I started to read this book called Unscripted by MJ DeMarco. Really good book. Definitely recommend that you guys go go check that book out. Unscripted by MJ DeMarco. So he, in his writings, he's really explaining and he's really showing how much society programs us in a certain way. It's the script, right? And it's through, and as we are evolving, or as we grow up from age 1 to 7, we've already been injected into this script. We've been injected into this narrative in which we are playing, and now it's a part of our ego, right? I'm going to school, these are my classes, I'm going to this college, I'm graduating, I'm gonna marry this wife, I'm gonna get this car, get this degree, this house. That is the script, right? And then the reason why the script exists is to program our ego. And a lot of people, even listening to this video, are kind of like, what? Or like what? Like, society, like, I don't know, society's not that bad or something like that. But they're not realizing that when you aren't your true self, when you aren't your authentic self, you can't, it's harder to find yourself. It's harder to become more of yourself. So when you've been programmed from age 1 to 7, on top of that, 7 to 20, 28, 25, 28, then if you haven't taken the time to actually go about looking for yourself, trying to find who you truly are, you're now going to just be, you're going to be trapped in that spiral, or in that script. And that's what the ego loves comfort. So the ego's always going to be trying to teach or tell you that this is the right way to go. Go this way. Your parents did this, so go this way. Your ego doubts a lot. If you haven't been able to show your ego that you are confident, right? And confidence comes from, it can be as simple as exercising, right? If my mind's like, oh bro, you can only do like 10 push-ups, and then I do 30 push-ups, then I'm now going to trust myself more, and my mind's now expanded to be like, oh shit, he actually can do 30 push-ups. What else can he do? Right? This is when the ego isn't closed off and like, no, I don't want to listen. I don't want to, like, no, we are ourself, and we're going to be ourself till the end of time. I don't want to evolve. I don't want to change. That's how the ego is. But when you can actually like open up your ego and then show it like, hey, we're going to do this, and this is going to happen. And then your ego's like, no, it's not. And then you do that, and then that happens, and then your ego's like, oh, I understand now. Okay, so you are in control, right? Your ego is not in control. You are the observer. You are in control of your reality. You are in control of everything that you are doing, but then the ego is going to be the doubt and the limitations that's going to get you to kind of like, doubt yourself or look in lack. I remember way back in the day, my mind was full of a lot of, I had a lot of negative thoughts. I was very nihilistic. I was very depressed. So what I started to realize, like when I look at my mindset now and I look at my mindset back then, is that the complete shift or change was actually just a shift in my personality. That whereas my mind was once loud, now it's more silent, because I've been able to silence the monkey mind, silence the ego mind. And yes, it took a lot of time in order to be able to silence my mind. It took probably many years of meditation, but there's really no difference between someone getting into this and have been doing it for so many years, because it's not the amount of time that you do it, it's the understanding. It's the knowledge applied to gain wisdom, which creates insight. It's the knowledge applied to gain wisdom, which creates insight. And then it's that insight, like this whole video that I gave you guys, this is my insight, this is my understanding. I didn't really, yes, I read MJ DeMarco's book, but I didn't really read books. This is actually all off the dome. This is a freestyle. This is all from my mind. And then on top of that, I also try to add, other bits of information that I know would also help on top of that at the same time. And as I started to decondition my mind, which took, again, like years of meditation, yoga, discipline, I then started to be able to focus my thoughts. I started to gain focus, and from my focus, I then gained clarity. From becoming a more clear individual, I could notice when my ego was coming up. So if someone said something that contradicted the way I thought, I didn't respond anymore, but instead, or I didn't react or respond anymore, but instead I was receptive. I no longer listened to speak, and I started to listen to understand. And the more that I started to listen to understand, this is what also was, again, like allowing me to dissolve my ego. Because when you start to understand, or you start to listen to something, the ego might try to get in the way. And then if you can dissolve it, if you can calm your mind, then you can actually start to understand your life, right? When you can actually calm the ego, because the ego is the thing that, you try to close your eyes and meditate, and you're not able to. Why can't I close my eyes? Like, what? It's the ego. The mind is so overactive. The ego is so active that when you want to do certain things, your mind won't let you, because it's showing you that it's in charge. But at the end of the day, when you do these things to subside your ego or subside your mind, you then understand that you are the one in charge. Truly, you are the one that is creating your life. You are the one that is choosing what goes into your mind. At the end of the day, we can't blame society. We can't blame our parents. We can't blame school or the system, because it's but just that, a system. So we must take it upon ourselves to understand all of these things, to understand society, to understand the system, to understand ourselves and our own mind, and then take this into concept, to understand that we are the ones that are creating our lives, right? So from this, you then must reprogram your mind. You must reprogram your ego, right? After you dissolve it, understand how it functions, you understand that it is not the master, but you are the master of your mind, and you can only obey one master. So it better be your mind. It better be yourself, your truths, and who you are. And this is actually how we step into our truths. This is how we become our greatest version and, manifest and create the life that we desire. You can't become who you're meant to be by staying who you are. You can only become a greater version of yourself by pushing past the limitations, the lack, and the doubt, and opening a door or seeing a way to who you are through the clarity of your being, through the clarity of who you are. So once you get a clear picture, and once you go within and you gain that clarity, you're gonna start to get a picture of who you are. And then it's no longer about accepting or believing who you perceive yourself to be, or the ego, but instead it's about now shifting that ego, dissolving it into being more of your true self, more of who you truly are, which you have found through going within and then bringing forward these epiphanies, and then letting these epiphanies to reprogram you and to reprogram your mind. And then it is from those epiphanies you have found your sight. You have found who you truly are, and as well who you're meant to be. And that was the path of your awakening. That was the path of your true self, right? We went from this egoic perception of what we perceived ourselves to be, mixed with a whole bunch of lack, limitation, and doubt, and then shifting ourselves to being the creator of our reality, dictating who we are and who we wish to be, and fully living out that being. And for anybody in the occult or embracing magic or witchcraft, this would also be what the daemon is. So the way in which we dissolve our ego is through understanding what the daemon is through actually becoming the daemon and then achieving that state and allowing it to then go over the ego. And now your ego is replaced with more of the daemon being your true authentic self, where then now your life is no longer dictated by the illusions. With that, you guys, that is a video on the ego. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to leave a like. And if you're enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe. With that, you guys, my name is O'Shea. As well, you can call me Atanu, for I'm your host. And I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Peace. I'm out.